Hi, my name is Lo Solano. In this video, I'm going to try my best to cover the Taino cacique, Enriquillo, from birth till his death. We're also going to cover where he's buried. No one really knows. There's two different accounts. Ever since I was little, I've been fascinated with the Taino Indians. Where are they? Are they still any left? Which took me down a rabbit hole. That's when I read about Enriquillo, an orphan Taino prince who was raised by Franciscan friars and made the strongest empire at the time. The Spanish asked for a truce. Guaracuya, Enriquillo's birth name, was born around 1500 AD on the shores of Lake Aragua, today Lago Enriquillo. Enriquillo was the name given to him by the Franciscan friars. He belonged to one of the 5 Taino kingdoms called Caciques on the island of Quisqueya, today Dominican Republic and Haiti. He was part of the Aragua Cacique on the southwestern part of the island, the largest by land. He was of noble blood. Cacique Bohicho was his grandfather and Anacaona his great aunt. That's debated. They say Bohicho was either his uncle or his dad and Anacaona his aunt, but I'm going to say that was his grandfather and his great aunt from what I read. In 1503, Nicolás de Obando, governor of Hispaniola at the time, tricked Anacaona with talks of peace and friendships. She threw a areito for Obando and his people. A areito is a party for Tainos. That's what they call fiestas, to celebrate their new friendship. Soon as the natives let their guard down, Obando gave a signal to his men. They started killing everyone and setting their village on fire, destroying the last great Cacique on the island. Anacaona was able to escape, but was later captured and hanged in Santo Domingo. Enriquillo and about 85 survivors of the ambush were given to an encomendero named Francisco Valenzuela. His land was in present-day San Juan de la Maguana. An encomienda is a land grant given to a colonist that allowed them the right to demand tribute and labor from natives. Pretty much gave him a slavery pass to have slaves under him. Under Valenzuela, Enriquillo learned Spanish and got baptized Catholic by the Franciscan friars. They also taught him how to read and write. He was also able to marry a mestiza woman of Indians and Spanish blood named Mencia through the church. Although Enriquillo and his people paid labor tribute to Valenzuela, he was kind to them. He gave them some autonomy. He let them plant and live in their own canuco. A canuco is a small farm. But after Valenzuela died, his son Andres Valenzuela inherited his encomienda, which included Enriquillo and his people. It was an illegal inheritance because the Spanish passed a law in 1517 that freed the natives after the death of the first encomendero. Andres was not like his father. He was a hothead and cruel to the natives. Problems started when Andres took Enriquillo's mare. Enriquillo was given the mare by Andres' dad Francisco on his deathbed, but Andres argued it was his through inheritance and made his man beat Enriquillo, breaking his finger and bruising his ribs. Some time passed and another incident took place. While Enriquillo and his men were working at a mine to fulfill their encomienda dues, Andres raped Mencia, Enriquillo's wife. When Enriquillo came back, he was upset and confronted Andres and demanded an apology. Enriquillo told Andres that he loved his wife very much. Andres replied, "Indians like a dog do not know what love is." Enriquillo knew how to read and he knew his rights. He made a complaint at the courthouse in San Juan de la Maguana to Lieutenant Governor named Pedro Badilla. He went to see Badilla at the courthouse in San Juan de la Maguana. There, Badilla laughed at him and had him beat for insubordination. One of the Franciscan friars said it was a miracle that he survived the beating. It took about a month for him to recover, but when he did, he went to the main court in Santo Domingo to see if they would hear his case out. There they laughed at him again and had him shipped in chains back to court, where he was beat again in San Juan de la Maguana. After that, they sent him back to his encomienda. After recovering, he gathered the families under his care and told them about what had happened to him in Santo Domingo, and that white men do not respect natives. He led his people into the Baruco Mountains, the territory that belonged to his ancestors before the colonizers arrived. Undressing 12 of his men tried following him, but he killed 2 of them and disarmed the rest and beat, undressed, and stripped them, but spared his life, telling him he better not see him again. The Baruco Mountains are on the southwest of present-day Dominican Republic. In the Baruco Mountains, Enriquillo and his men, which included, after some time, escaped African slaves, would engage in guerrilla warfare and ambush the Spanish. After years of warfare and no success catching Enriquillo, the Spanish started getting tired. At the same time of Enriquillo's rebellion, a lot of Spanish people started leaving the island for mainland Mexico and Peru in search of gold and new lands to conquer. That and the fact that a lot of money was being spent trying to capture Enriquillo and his men, which now numbered in the hundreds, made the Spanish want peace. Enriquillo's resistance lasted from 1519 to 1533. That's when the King of Spanish, Charles V, commissioned Francisco Barrio Nuevo to negotiate a peace treaty with Enriquillo. Barrio Nuevo, accompanied with Dominican Fair Bartolomé de la Casa, met Enriquillo and his men in Isla Cabritos in Lake Aragua, where they gave him a letter from Charles V stating the freedom of the natives and the right for them to own land. After that day, Enriquillo stopped fighting. This is when things get weird. Some sources say that he took his people to Sabana Grande de Boyá, today in the province of Monte Plata, and settled down and lived in a peaceful life with his wife and people until he died 3 years later in 1536. They say he was buried in a church in Sabana Grande de Boyá called La Iglesia de la Santa Agua. Other sources say that he settled down close to the Baruco Mountains in Pueblo Viejo, Asua, where he was buried under a church. The church was destroyed by angry African slaves because the stipulation of the peace treaty was that he had to return the runaway slaves to the Spanish. Angry with Enriquillo, they destroyed his tomb. In my humble opinion, I think Enriquillo was buried in Asua because in De La Casa's book, The Brief Destruction of the Indies, he said that Enriquillo settled down in a village 7 leagues west of Asua. And in the Encyclopedia of World Slavery, it says that he was buried in Asua as well. And in the early 2010s, a skeleton was discovered and the remains of the church that was destroyed. Nonetheless, Enriquillo is a polarizing figure in history and made the strongest empire in the world at the time, the Spanish, signed the first peace treaty in the so-called New World.